Hello, my name is Sacha Dinier. Most may know me as the First Angel, and I am here to talk about perspective, how to make it easy, and getting it right fast. So, first thing we are going to do is make a custom brush, which is named perspective brush or star brush. We make a new file in Photoshop, make it 2001 high, 2001 wide, hit enter. With Ctrl R you're getting the rulers, pull one down to 1000, pull one down to 1000, make a new layer, then go to the brush tool, select one pixel brush, click off shape dynamics, place it here, click once, hold your shift key and place it here, click once, hold your shift key and duplicate it, press Ctrl T, turn it 180 degrees. Duplicate one more time, give it 45 degrees, and if we look at this now, it should be exactly centered. Yes, it is. So we are going to make a new layer. This can be merged, Ctrl E to merge it down, open path, go here, make a new polygon 2, give it 90 sides, check star, make it exactly 1000 pixels, then set 99 here, make sure this is 1000 pixels, use PX, click the star and go to the center with it to create it. Hold your shift key and drag it in place. Now what we are going to do is select the foreground color, use black, fill it, delete the path, we don't need it anymore, and it has done this for you. With Ctrl A X we paste it exactly centered, duplicate the layer or press Ctrl V once more and once more and once more. Now we are going down to layer 3, press Ctrl T, give it 90 degrees, press Ctrl E, go to layer 4, press Ctrl T, give it 2 degrees, press Ctrl A, X, V, and Ctrl E, go to layer 5, give it 1 degree, duplicate it, give me -2, and there goes our star. Now we merge it down. As you can see here in the center it's a little bit dense, so it makes it hard to get the overview here. So we are going to put the rectangle rectangular marquee. Press Ctrl H. Hold the Shift key to maintain the aspect ratio. Go over here where it's most dense. Transform selection. Center it. Shift F6. Delete the center. Duplicate the layer. Ctrl T. Lock the aspect ratio. Give it 50%. And merge it down. Now what we are having here is our new brush. You can see all lines are running smoothly to the center now. And we are going to go edit, define brush preset, name it star brush. And off we go to the next part. We're going to have a look at the one-point perspective and the basics. So I'm creating a new file here. Perspective basically is when we set the horizon here. For example, when the horizon is very high, I would use this for an aerial view. Having more than one vanishing point provides us the grid. Now, taking this is my second vanishing point, and these lines are running down here. This creates the illusion of looking down a rift or something, and this is when we flip it, we get exactly the opposite illusion, and it gets even more obvious as soon as we paint in a person that is looking up this high environment. Could be trees, could be forests, could be high buildings. Everything that is following into this vanishing point up here is creating the illusion of having a huge environment around us. This could be an overhead bridge, for example. And yeah, this is how perspective is working, basically creating the illusion of lines leading parallel something. And this is what we made the brush for, so we're going to make the first one. This is going to make a group named perspective grid, or short P grid. I add a layer here, set my horizon, in this case quiet, centered to quarter or third, something like that. Now, what I'm doing here is adding another layer. Label this with horizon line. This is the vanishing point. We're taking our brush we made before and place it somewhere on this horizon line. Now, when we place it more on this side, it creates the illusion to be closer to this edge, if it's a wall or something. Now, the more narrow it is to the center in case we get multiple vanishing points, the more radical the view gets. And if we just want center perspective and we have a look at this, things are happening in this virtual room. Placing my palette here, scaling it slightly up so it's covering my canvas, and here we go. The reason why I put this in this folder, now I can easily have all over control over it and blend it in and out with just one click. Now in a center perspective, things are either running to this vanishing point here or having a 90 degrees angle. Now here, setting a ground here, give it first kind of layer here. This is following this blue line. Moving it here. Moving this down here. Well, this is basically already creating the dimensions of a room or a box in perspective. So what we are going to do now is having a look at how to get things in here. Therefore, I need to start with real basics. I prefer to usually plan how big something is, and for this we are going to have a look at curves first. Having this little square here, now what putting in things in perspective means is maintain proportions. If you, for example, have an isometrical view, this is maybe going to be used in, let's say, every single length here is having the original length. This perfectly parallel and not distorted. This is an isometrical view. We could, in the same position, have a chair, for example. Could be used in concept art for a building that is going to be recreated in 3D later, or things like that. So this is the easiest way of perspective. Just get a grid that is having these angles in it, and you may know it from games earlier. Now, curves are something very difficult. We're going to help us with this by dividing lines. I can make out proportions by connecting the corners of a square. I can find the center of it. Now, what you see here is basically transformation dummy. If we got this ellipse here, it is cutting here, 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 and here. This is more or less 2/3 from center. Now, if I put something in perspective like this curve, I would have a really hard time to figure out where things are running without little help. So what I'm marking here are these pink dots that are being my help in constructing it, and what I'm using is basically proportions. So you can see this is basically putting things in a frame to make it easier for us to find it in the three-dimensional space. So if I'm putting this on the ground, for example, I'm connecting these corners here. Do the same what I done up here by connecting the corners. And then I take this line, find the third here, find the third here, find the third here. And this is basically where the line is going to fit. Now, if I got a curve already, I've drawn it in 2D in plan view. I can hold the Control key and move the single corners of it and match it. If I paint it freehand, pink dots are basically being my guides to get this curve right, and you can see when I match it here, the pink dots, I've been drawing it by hand, are matching quite exactly where this curve is ending up now. So this is basically how to get a curve into perspective by constructing these pink dots, which when I connect them will basically showing me points in the room. Now let's take it a step further. This also, for me, is a rotation dummy. Now I can if we have this example here, starting with something simple, got this frame here around the wall. I want some distance, and what I'm doing is I'm measuring this distance here, giving it 90 degrees. Would move up somewhere here, cuts here, giving it my third again, or moving an ellipse in. Now this is the rotation axis. Makes this way from here to here. I'm creating a box for this and move it up here, following the blue line, move it down here, move it up here again, and following this again. Now what we need is a small segment of this. If you check out where it cuts, this is the new 90 degrees angle, and I'm going to give it some thickness. Now this could be a picture on the wall, or a window that is opening. For better overview, marking this blue. Now this is of course working in every direction. Taking this, let me place the door here. Now I want this door to open. What I do is just creating the same kind of frame we had back here. And this. Let's open it on the other side. Connecting this. This is the same segment again, so this is the motion path where the door's opening, connecting these lines. It's basically providing me an endless possibility of doors on this path. Whenever I connect it down, it's half open. Swing it a little bit more open. Simply where it cuts here, cuts here. So what I'm doing here is creating rotation axis. This system can go ahead, but let's first have a look how to get these construction planes always into place. Okay, we got the room again. Now, what I want to do now is creating some simple geometry. The easiest geometry, obviously, is non-curved. Leading from here to something curved actually means finding center. This is this cross again. Now I can move it from here giving it the height. When I got the pyramid here, I can cut it here, cut it here, cut it here, cut it here, or match in an ellipse, of course. And there goes a cone with help of this pyramid, of course. Now, what I'm going to do next is a very tricky thing like a spiral. From side view, spiral we are going to create, let's make it a more simple one. Just one rotation, it will do. Now, what I'm doing here is basically, when you would look at this, create many different little layers here. So this one on these construction planes goes from here to here to here and so on. This is creating basically the segments for it. So what I do in the 3D room is first give it, say, height, width. Okay. Just follow me here. Now this box is basically the base for what we need. We can find the center of this again by just connecting these, and here's the middle, following down here. Do the same again here. Here's the middle, moving down here. And so on. So we are basically creating here a box which goes from here, back here, back here, over here, up here, down here. Now, what I'm doing first is creating these layers. Taking a new color, drawing in our famous dots. Now, with many more of these layers, I basically get this path into place. What I do is use the segments here. With many more of these segments we would have a staircase. By just connecting these points that will be on these different layers, is it going to end up somehow like this, by just finding the points on these layers. So I get even something as tricky as a spiral in place, and this segmentation will help us later. So let's move on to the next thing. I do always start with defining the mass of something. This is making it much easier to then settle on position. Now, if we have a complicated curve, you've seen before, a spiral can be constructed. I'm going to come back later to this part and put the character with this system into perspective. Now, what I wanted to do is, if you see from top view how this curve is running, I'm just dividing this, and this results me the new dots. Now I can just divide this find this dot here, this dot here, and this dot here. Can give it more information where this curve is running, but you can see this is the first construction plane, and I got this curve where I wanted to. Now if I want it from the side view run over, for example, this way, I just do the same. Get this, get this. These are the points we are looking for. Now we're going to start back here. It's closer. And I want the first point to be here. Next point. To end up here. Now this is uncool, but basically I'm just deciding on the height on different levels, and I'm looking this up by defining where it's coming from, where it's going to. This is up here, so I end with the line up here. This is in the center, this is over here, and comes from here. So I give this, and I got this next point. So it starts back here. And finding these points into three-dimensional room actually is adding different planes where things are cutting and finding those again in this grid. Now you can see this is a three-dimensional grid telling me where I'm going to find the coordinates, and I'm measuring it in a way to basically find proportions within it, like thirds or halves or whatever makes it easy to get the overview. Given it a certain thickness, we are going to start from scratch to have a better example. Now, if this is just running parallel, I can use this construction plane again. There's two ways to rotate something in the room. And get it right. Now, if we have this body here, we can do it by the following things. First of all, we connect here. We connect here. When I look at it from the top view, it now would look like this. First thing I'm going to do is putting it in a circle by having 90 degrees. If you look at this and look at the cross, proportion now for the segmentation will be somewhere in the third of this. Now, move the center out. I of course could have done it by matching an ellipse here, but first thing I want to do is deciding on a new direction. So when this is the 0 point, and I rotate it, I simply take how much this segment makes on the rotation. Now measuring this and just having this quarter here, taking it, I rotate it to here, connect through the center and expand it will give me a new vanishing point. So this on the segmentation and here taking the same amount, a third, connecting through this will give me another new vanishing point. Every line from here and here now is parallel, but is actually located on the horizon line. I can take this proportion again, cutting here in thirds, set the new vanishing point. Now it's cutting the circle here, and I move it back up to the same height it had before. And into this, by finding the center, I now can reconstruct this rounding in here. Now, second way to do the same, take a different approach. Let's take it, we have a little landscape in here. We can define height from 0 plane, of course. Moving some spline here, moving some spline here, and sculpting a nice little landscape like this. Got an inset here, so it's going to be a little lake. Okay, we have this landscape, some little houses and stuff. Now, what I'm going to do is place this strongly simplified little spaceship seen from the side like this, seen from top view like this, and seen from front view like this. And what I'm going to do first is create my rotation dummy. Therefore, just find coordinates where I want it to be. Planning my rotation starts basically with finding a point. Now I want it to be non-linear skewed like this, and what I'm doing here is using same angle. On my rotation dummy. Now, rotation dummy actually means I got this rotation axis again, I got this rotation axis again, and of course I got this rotation axis. Now, what I'm going to do is I want this spaceship from side view go like this. Diving slightly, So I can take proportion here, going from here to here. This is resulting me the second line. Now all I need to do is moving this parallel to this and moving it back here. Now I got my ground construction plane. I can now paint in this. Sorry. This of course is somewhere parallel to this, and this is my new corner. So what I'm doing first, when I got this construction plane, I'm basically connecting this, dividing here, dividing here. I get top view here. This new vertical. Seen on this, it is 90 degrees. Now it will be slightly distorted. I could establish a new vanishing point somewhere down here. We had this before. For the freehand version of constructing this object, will be enough just to draw in the height. This is basically 2 to 1, so just taking half of this, moving it up, connecting it down, and there goes my spaceship flying over some landscape, and it also is in perspective and rotated within this rotation dummy based on a ground plane, and afterwards creating vanishing points. Now what it's doing, I can actually take these rotation angles in this cube, place it over here, here, here. It also is in perspective because this rotation dummy is within this grid. Now that we done some very complicated things, let's get to two-point perspective and have a look how we use a more sophisticated setup. Okay, we are going to have a look at two-point perspective. Two-point perspective is basically having two vanishing points, and these are on the horizon. Going to make a new set here. Name it perspective grid. Starting with the horizon. Moving it wherever you want it. Setting the first vanishing point. Picking color. setting it exactly on the border, pulling down a guide, zooming a little bit out. Okay, I pull the vanishing point where I want it to. Scale it up, holding Alt and the Shift key to scale it from the pivot. Setting the second vanishing point, doing the same. There goes our 2-point setup. Scaling, moving, as before. Holding Alt and Shift. Scale it until it's covering your canvas. Now in this 2-point setup, every line not being, can you use this to like 40? Every line not running into a vanishing point actually will run perfectly vertical. So we're going to paint a little village and or castle, something like that. Going to start with the basement. Connecting the corners will tell me where the center is. Moving things up. Now this line will follow red. Deciding on the height. Okay, we're going to add a tower here. Following the red lines. Deciding where the center is. Running perfectly through this line. Now this is going to give me the height, and I connect this. See? Same thing. We want a little arch back here. connecting this, connecting this. Following the red lines. Cutting here. This is going to be the inset, so this part will not be visible, obviously. Still, when I construct it, I want this going this line, going this line. Center here. This would follow this curve from here to here. This part will not be visible, so I'm happy with this. Moving up the ground a bit. Want some mountain back here. Giving it the height. Now, as you can see, every hard surface thing is very easy to construct. As long as it's parallel. Layouting this. Want a house here. Moving something into the picture. Same as before, this is the invisible side. Now I want an overcut. Let's make this little thing a church. Now what I'm doing is adding here and here, church tower. Finding the center. Should be here. Giving it some height. Now I want for this and for this some overcuts. What I'm doing now is first giving it the height. Adding little squares here. Now this is the most distant point. Goes back here. Goes back here. Shading it for some overview. Now I'm connecting it. Okay. Doing the same back here. Now I want this to be curved, so I'm moving this front of here, finding center. Following green. This is the highest point, so I'm adding a line here. This is the center. want this curve, so dividing this line again here. This is where my curve is running. Now if we want some windows on this, let's take it, we want this to be, to have some more subshades. I'm just creating an inset. This is easier. This is giving me the base. Same here. Giving me the height for this, for this, for this. I of course can expand this, finding the center, expanding. Now this is a new square. Finding the next corner. Leading me up here, here, here. Connecting. Back here the same, but it's all covered, so I don't need to construct it really. I have this gate here. If we want to add windows to this church, just cleaning it up a bit. It is always easy to find the center, so we've done it before. Here, can do this again. Following green line. Now, adding some kind of goth windows to this. I want to have it an entrance, so adding new construction plane here, move it out a bit, move it down, following the base, give it a height, maximum width, connecting into this plane, so having this here. Oh, it's okay. Let's have this little guy, but place it here. This is basically 2-point perspective. It's giving me the height, so it's this guy. See, it's very easy to construct things in a perspective grid. I want some windows along this guy. Could lead this up, but you get the point. It's like this, like this. First floor here, going to add a row of windows. Same height here, here. Now we wanna add something that is not into this grid, but still in perspective. Let's do a house that has a different angle. Now what we are going to do is define the mass. This is going to result as a circle. We simply rotate the thing within this circle. Now what we are going to do is this base here. Choose the angle. Take a new color for better overview. Let's say I turn it over here. This distance. And I can move it up. Now what I could do is actually match this base into a new vanishing point that would end up somewhere here, but basically this is a method how you can rotate things, putting it into this construction circle. Put a well in here. moving it up. This is another circle. Just moving it through the center. And here goes the bars. And if you look at this now, with a little bit of cleanup, we got perfect perspective construction of a little medieval scene. Now, if we, for last example, want for this church here the inset, we simply draw this part also on the backside. This will result as the pillars. Now we cut this here, cut this here. And on the back side it will do this. Something like this can be constructed here. This goes black, this goes black. And if we would want to have the bell visible, we simply construct this into the plane again. Moving this here, moving this here, connect it, and this is the tiny bit of the bell that would be visible. So, this is the lower side. It's going to be dark. Well, as you can see in this kind of two-point perspective, you can work fast forward, and every line here is perfectly vertical. You can add things very easy, adding here a window, for example. Working with different layers and giving it feel for distance. Here, here, town scene, like, yeah. If we like putting this here, putting this parallel. Well, this basically is the two-point perspective. Now I want to move on and show you three-point perspective and some more tricky thing without 3D space. This is just to show you how fast you can get a scene right setting. So this is basically 2-point perspective. Let's move. Okay, we are going to have a look at 2-point perspective. 2-point perspective is basically having two vanishing points, and these are on the horizon. Going to make a new set here. Name it perspective grid. Starting with the horizon. Moving it wherever you want it. Setting the first vanishing point. Picking color. Setting it exactly on the border. Pulling down a guide. Zooming a little bit out. Okay, I pull the vanishing point where I want it to. Scale it up, holding Alt and the Shift key to scale it from the pivot. Setting the second vanishing point, doing the same. There goes our 2-point setup. Scaling, moving, as before. Holding Alt and Shift. Scale it until it's covering your canvas. Now in this 2-point setup, every line not being, can you use this to like 40? Every line not running into a vanishing point actually will run perfectly vertical. So we're going to paint a little village and or castle, something like that. Going to start with the basement. Connecting the corners will tell me where the center is. Moving things up. Now this line will follow red. Deciding on the height. Okay, we're going to add a tower here. Following the red lines. deciding where the center is. Running perfectly through this line. Now this is going to give me the height, and I connect this. Say same thing. We want a little arch back here. Connecting this. Following the red lines. Cutting here. This is going to be the inset, so this part will not be visible, obviously. Still, when I construct it, I want this, having this line, center here. This would follow this curve from here to here. This part will not be visible, so I'm happy with this. Moving up the ground a bit. Want some mountain back here. Giving it the height. Now, as you can see, every hard surface thing is very easy to construct. As long as it's parallel. Layouting this. Want a house here. Moving something into the picture. Same as before, this is the invisible side. Now I want an overcut. Let's make this little thing a church. Now what I'm doing is adding here and here, church tower. Finding the center. Should be here. Giving it some height. Now I want for this and for this some overcuts. What I'm doing now is first giving it the height. Adding little squares here. Now this is the most distant point. Goes back here. Goes back here. Shading it for some overview. Now I'm connecting it. Okay. Doing the same back here. Now I want this to be curved, so I'm moving this front here, finding center. Following green. This is the highest point, so I'm adding a line here. This is the center. I want this curve, so dividing this line again here. This is where my curve is running. Now if we want some windows on this, let's take it, we want this to be, have some more subshades. I'm just creating an inset. This is easier. This is giving me the base. Same here. Giving me the height for this, for this, for this. I of course can expand this, finding the center, expanding. Now this is a new square. Finding the next corner. Leading me up here, here, here. Connecting. Back here the same, but it's all covered, so I don't need to construct it really. I have this gate here. If we want to add windows to this church, just cleaning it up a bit. It is always easy to find the center. We've done it before. Here, can do this again. Following green line. Now, I'm adding some kind of goth windows to this. I want to have it an entrance, so adding construction plane here, move it out a bit, move it down, following the base, give it a height, maximum width, connecting, into this plane, so having this here. Oh, it's okay. Let's have this little guy, but place it here. This is basically 2-point perspective. It's giving me the height, so it's this guy. See, it's very easy to construct things in a perspective grid. I want some windows along this guy. Could lead this up, but you get the point. It's like this, like this. First floor here, going to add a row of windows. Same height here, here. Now we wanna add something that is not into this grid, but still in perspective. Let's do a house that has a different angle. Now what we are going to do is define the mass. This is going to result as a circle. We simply rotate the thing within this circle. Now what we are going to do is this base here, choose the angle, take a new color for better overview. Let's say I turn it over here. This distance. And I can move it up. Now what I could do is actually match this base into a new vanishing point that would end up somewhere here. But basically this is a method how you can rotate things, putting it into this construction circle. Put a well in here. Moving it up. This is another circle. Just moving it through the center. And here goes the bars. And if you look at this now, with a little bit of cleanup, we got perfect perspective construction of a little medieval scene. Now, if we, for last example, want for this church here the inset, we simply draw this part also on the backside. This will result as the pillars. Now we cut this here, cut this here. And on the back side it will do this. Something like this can be constructed here. This goes black, this goes black. And if we would want to have the bell visible, we simply construct this into the plane again. Moving this here, moving this here, connect it. And this is the tiny bit of the bell that would be visible. So, this is the lower side. It's going to be dark. Well, as you can see in this kind of two-point perspective, you can work fast forward, and every line here is perfectly vertical. You can add things very easy, adding here a window, for example. Working with different layers and giving it feel for distance. Here, here, town scene, like, yeah. I like putting this here. Putting this parallel. Well, this basically is the two-point perspective. Now I want to move on and show you 3-point perspective and some more tricky thing without 3D space. This is just to show you how fast you can get a scene right setting. So this is basically 2-point perspective. Let's move. Now we're going to do what we done before. We make our grid. Horizon. Scaling it with Alt Shift pressed. Three-point perspective is basically what you will see most of the illustrations in. If you, for example, having an exception, I would see some concept art for building stuff in 3D later in isometrical view, which is basically a 60 degrees grid, and every line is having the original length. Well, this is a very narrow angle I picked. It's quite fun to do things in these kind of angles. Now let's see. If we, for example, got this guy, being here, just running. we are doing what we done before. We put him in a grid, which is in this case a box. Now, it is not such a huge problem to divide this in halves or thirds or whatever. Now what I'm going to try is finding these pink dots where the joints are going to be, and seen frontally I'm using the same grid just to have an idea where this guy is running. Now I want a bit of tension, moving back leg. Moving his knee, foot, having this here. Moving this out. Want him to do this, or something like this. Now this is my reference. Putting this guy here in the upper corner. Getting my grip back. Now what I'm doing is first find this big square. Going to use the whole height. Then this to this is basically being the same square. This is the center. Following this green line back here. Cutting in with the red line. Moving it down here. I'll pick a different color. Marking me the first series of guides. Dividing this. Dividing this. This is blue plane. See, it's not a big problem to put this in perspective. Now, going to make a pink plane. here. And we are going to have orange plane. Now, we could mark in a few more, but this basically may do. For construction. So first point I am going to find is this center. This is very easy. Following pink over here in the center is this bone. Now what I'm doing is I measure this, put it into a little square. I can mark this square in here. I can mark this square in here. Now what it is doing is goes from here up here, then follows this. Here's point 1. Goes from here, back here, then here up. This is point 2. And I got this axis in perspective. Now what I'm going to do is cut this in 4th. This is basically somewhere here. Now taking this square, taking this line, getting this in 4th, and this is this point. Now seen from the front, this is giving me this little square. This side is up and back here. So I'm connecting this, create the box and move it up here. This guy is down here and it's slightly in front, so I'm moving it down and front of here. Connecting this is the second axis. Now, what I'm going to do is connect this here, then go to this point. This is somewhere back here and in the middle of this. So I'm going to take this spline here, following into perspective over here. Moving it to the middle, and I got this guy. Now the head is exactly in front of here, and it is centered, so I just draw in a blob. Moving back here, setting this somewhere center. This is my construction plane. I get this down here. Setting the pink point. This is where the hand will be placed. Connecting. Connecting. Now I want this guy here. This is blue square and pink square. Okay. Now this is somehow quarter. Moving it here. And moving it up. Means this is here. This is here. Now I want this knee. It is somehow in a quarter. So I'm taking this square. Goes down to pink. Measure. Got it somewhere here. Connected. Foot is down in the center, in a half of it. So go in here to pink, find half of it. Here's the spot, connecting it. Now this is in the center of here, so it is pink. Moving down here to possibly a third. And there goes second leg. I move this here. It's more or less in third. A bit. No, it's more or less third. So I'm cutting this in thirds. I'm cutting this in thirds. And here will be the second foot. Now all I need to do is connect this, this, and I get an idea of where my character will be when he is in place. Now all I need to do is give him a certain bit of mass, and there goes a radical angle. Now this of course works with quite much everything you can construct, as long as you find things in perspective. You can basically place every single thing into perspective. It's just finding the right points. Say if we got this here, for example, I construct this from frontal view. Cut it here. Cut it here. Connect this. Connect this. It's all about finding lines into a perspective grid. I would have a hard time figuring out where these points are, but I can construct them into a perspective grid very easily. So, see, same thing of course works, for example, for a dragon as well. I basically just draw a view, and I am able to put it into the trickiest angles. And for this example, I just, for example, divided or broke down the shape of dragon wings into something that is easy to put into perspective. So this is basically starting from here, going here, going here, going back here, getting this over here, over here, over here. You can basically put every shape like this into perspective. Let's take a last example to get this complete. If we got this here, this is very simple, this is the butterfly. I want to put this in perspective. So I simply check again where points are cutting. So I can basically find that in perspective again. Let's attach these wings. I know it's hilarious, but yeah, for the fun of it, I first of all create me from front view the angle going from here to here. Then follow this, going from here to here, from here to here, connected, connected. Let's take it, I need a little bit more. This is the attachment point. Now I even could rotate it by just creating me a new rotation plane, but basically I'm just finding the right points here. Then I put the cross back here, looking where it's cutting. This is in a third, this is in a third, and so on. So if I got this, basically starting with the first point, this is this one, going over here. 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 When I connect it, see, I get the curve in perspective. So this is basically how to make this work. So this is the way I'm usually doing a perspective mock-up, just to get an idea of where things are facing. From a certain point, it's not even necessary you completely construct everything, but just for tricky angles like this one, this is very, very helpful. And yeah, I hope you liked this. Now, as for tricky things like measures, we're going to have a little look at a last thing. For example, we want to draw a head in a tricky angle. Now, what we are first going to do is creating us a little reference. Now, when you see the face from the front, it's basically this, 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 now we are dividing these lines in same distance in thirds. So we have the placement of the eyes, marking these pink. What I'm using here is projection. Now, taking the nose simplified, you could call it a M, which is basically placed inside of this point. If you want to define it more, you can take the nose drills, which will enlarged be like this. Now, if you're painting more detailed, you can find these points in here. Taking this distance, we are going to add the mouth. From the side view, just getting same proportions here. Now, what we are looking for are these points. Hold on a second. Now, my machine was lagging very much, so let's just ignore it and hope it doesn't do it again. If we have this little head here, using the same technique as we used before, we can simply break it down into basic geometry, having this here, 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 here. We are going to cut this in 4 parts. This is providing me the center. So, in this very radical angle, things haven't changed. No matter how complicated an angle is, we always are able to find a third. Now this is providing me first curve, and it will be this center line. Same for this just connecting here, 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 and back here. Now I'm taking different colors, marking green, marking light blue, this is my center line. This is my outline. Now I am going to create this line by just dividing this line. Dividing this line. Dividing this line. And dividing this line. So when I connect now the highest points of this, I get my basic head shape, lowering the opacity slightly. Now what I'm doing here in front is creating me a projection. What I'm doing is using exactly those proportions again. Now this is basically cutting things in the center. Then we got 1/3 here, 1/3 here, and this and this should be exactly the same distance, and this is this point and this point. Now we are just following the perspective grid and wait until the green line cuts, which actually provides us this line. Now what we are doing from here is just moving it up, and we want this little square in here. What I'm doing is giving me this. And you can see this is my construction plane. So I'm just trying to find this point, moving it here, moving it here. So this is the center line, and I'm breaking it down into basic geometry. This is cutting here, moving it here. Now if I want this line, I could construct it, but actually I'm just roughly getting me some orientation points. This is following this line, so it's just this, and I could construct this line, but say every single object in here is nothing but geometry. Seen from the front, this will be the nose width. Cutting it down here, taking this, now taking this height, and now that we are here, just placing these pink dots in here, and there goes the nose frills. Now I could keep constructing this, but it's basically just to get you the idea of how everything basically can be broken down into basic geometry as well, and put into perspective once you're patient enough to just find you the points in the three-dimensional room. Now what I was looking for was just this point here, using projection from the plane, moving it back here to get this point, then created me basically this line here, which provides me this point, and this point if I measure it. Now, you could actually break it down into this geometry and then refine it. And this is basically showing each and every object, no matter what it is, can be constructed in a perspective grid or broken down into basic geometry. So you see, wasn't that much of a problem to get basic geometry for a head in a very tricky angle. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm going to show you now the last part. This is going to be how to match perspective grid into some existing geometry.